All right, Nick, let's talk about the USC Trojans. The Trojans have made a tremendous turnaround this offseason. We've talked about numerous different things they have done really well this offseason. One thing in particular we love to talk about is recruiting. They've done a great job, but I don't think people understand how good they have done at recruiting, and in particular, the changes they made, how big those changes were towards this team. We're going to highlight some of that stuff, and I think Trojans fans are going to love to see the results of the changes they've made this season. But first, I'm Andrew, that's Nick, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, Nick, as I alluded to, big changes at the recruiting position, specifically when you talk about the recruiters, the guys that are going out, boots on the ground, bringing players in for the Trojans. Big changes were made, sweeping changes the last couple of years, and those changes are really paying off in a big way. Let's get into the article and we can talk more about the data on it on the other side. So this is over from SI.com. It says, with the early signing period taking place in the first week of December, a number of programs have filled out the majority of its recruiting class heading into the fall. 24/7 Sports ranked its top 10 recruiters of this current cycle, and 3 members of the Trojans coaching staff were featured on the list, including defensive line coach Eric Henderson at number 2, secondary coach Doug Belk at number 5, and offensive line coach Zach Hansen at number 7. Get this, USC is the only team to have more than one top recruiter in college football, and they have 3. That is absolutely incredible to me. They have knocked it out of the park with these recent hires. But just to kind of show you the transition from pre to now, as far as what these guys have done, let's pull up our next graph and go over it here for just a second. So this is the recruits brought in the 2022 and 2023 years, the years before these guys came to the school. Then we're looking at 2025 and 2026. There's a little bit of crossover in 2024, so let's not even worry about it. And let's just go to 100% sure weren't here in 2022 and 2023. They were here in 25 and 26. And what does the difference look like for the Trojans at the offensive line position? 7 guys in 2022 and 2023 to 10 guys they've been able to bring in 25 and 26. Pretty good, sizable increase. But when you get to the next positions, it gets even better. You can see here at the defensive line, 5 guys brought in 2022 and 2023. They brought in 5 guys in the 2025 class alone. 13 players brought in the 25 and 26 classes across the defensive line. 8 guys in this most recent 2026 class. Really, really great stuff here on the defensive line. And finally, the cornerback position, another great jump up as well. 6 guys in 22 and 23. You look at going into 25 and 26, 11 guys at just the cornerback position here for the Trojans. Really, really big jumps across much needed positions on this Trojans team. Offensive line, defensive line, corner, just defense in general, I think were really things they needed to improve on. What do? They go out and hire some guys that turn out to be 3 of the top 10 recruiters in the country at their positions of need. Not only do they do that, they put results. They're doubling and even sometimes almost tripling up on the amount of recruits they've gotten the last couple of years. This has been a really great turnaround for the Trojans. I love this news. I love to see the results here that Lincoln Riley went out, put his pride aside, said, hey, I can't do it all. The offense isn't going to be able to win us games 100% of the time. We need to go out and focus on some other things. We need to load up in the trenches. We just need to make this team more balanced. What did he do? He went out and made 3 absolutely incredible moves, and they paid off big time. That's enough from me, Nick. Curious what you think about all of this for the Trojans. But first, Trojans fans, in the comments section below, we're kind of talking about something interesting here. We're talking about, coaching changes, things that have been brought into this program. So outside of this era of Trojans football, what is the most impactful coaching change in USC Trojans history? Is there a guy that came in and really flipped the culture on its head, brought the team up into relevance? Is there a coach that turned it around? What has been the most impactful coaching change in Trojans history? Put it in the comment section below. But nonetheless, Nick, what are your thoughts on everything here for USC?
So it's important to understand this didn't happen in a vacuum. You have to understand, right? If we back in time a little bit, Lincoln Riley took over the head coaching job at USC in 2022. And if you look at his first season at USC, it went, for all intents and purposes, okay. 11-3. They lost in the Cotton Bowl, but it was a solid season. Obviously you have higher expectations, but for a first year in the program, you're not devastated by that. And then in 2023, they went to 8-5, of course. So that was a disappointing season. That was Caleb Williams' final season. And at that point, though, Lincoln Riley was still, he had the previous, of the 5 of his last 6 seasons, he had double-digit wins. If you go back his time as Oklahoma, he had been a very successful coach, was considered an offensive just mastermind. But he did something very interesting at that moment is he underwent massive changes. And we talked about a little bit at the time, but he was willing to humble who he was as a coach to bring in new pieces, sometimes external hires, sometimes internal promotions to change USC and kind of go through a wholesale change. And let's pull up this graphic here that I sent you. This was courtesy of Perplexity AI, just to put together some information talking about when they hired these guys. You can notice that they all happened right around the same time frame. Eric Henderson was officially announced, again, courtesy of the graphic here. You can see it as the USC defensive coordinator in January 15th of 2024. You can see Duck Belt was named the USC defensive back coach in December 2023. And you can see Zach Hansen was named the offensive line coach in December 2024. His promotion became official in December 2024. So we're talking about a 1 calendar year that the USC Trojans, Lincoln Riley specifically, made these 3 massive changes, right? And I think that's really important because none of these 3 moves were moves that happened in a vacuum. Lincoln Riley clearly realized that his recruiting chops, his talent that was doing well in Oklahoma, wasn't getting it done in USC. He had that first great season, but let's be totally honest, a lot of that was built off of Caleb Williams being stupendous. We saw the wheels fall off the following season where Caleb Williams couldn't salvage the program. We saw what happened in 2024. What Lincoln Riley did ahead of time, in this case, a couple years ahead of time, recognized that the USC program that he inherited plus his initial strategy was a disaster. It was masked by Caleb Williams. He was leading USC, the Trojans program, down the tubes into the dumpster fire. It was clear and obvious to him. But what does he do? A lot of other coaches, and we've seen this with other USC coaches, they just say, well, I can fix it just being me and doing what I do. I'll just keep trying and maybe it'll all work out. We've seen in a lot of coaches in the past, not just with USC, but with other programs, it doesn't work. What does Lincoln Riley do? In a span of 1 calendar year, he brings in 3 massive promotions, 3 big coaching changes, elevates these 3 guys, and what do they become? Top flight recruiters. And then this offseason, of course, he brought in Chad Bowden from Notre Dame, right? He's bringing in change. He's bringing in other guys. He's humbling himself and saying, listen, I need lieutenants. I need support staff. I need mid-level staff to execute my vision. I am not, speaking for Lincoln Riley here, I am not the world's best recruiter, it turns out. Turns out I'm really good at working with quarterbacks and getting the best out of my QB. I did that with Caleb Williams. I've done that with other guys in Oklahoma. I am not the recruiter I thought I was that was making these guys in Norman. I need other resources, and he's gone out and got them. It sounds obvious, and we would hope every head coach would do this, but I tell you what, most don't, right? How many head coaches do we see across all of college football where it just struggles and they just plod along for a few years and nothing ever changes, nothing improves. They don't make any big hires, they don't make any big fires, they don't upset the apple cart for their own staff, and eventually they get fired and you bring in another guy. I mean, that's the story of 90% of staffs, 90% of programs until they find the right head coach. What does Lincoln Riley do? Going back to when this first started happening, December of 2023, he knows he can't recruit good enough. He knows he's not apt enough to recruit some of these positions. And he starts hiring, he starts promoting, he starts making big changes. These aren't things that happen in a vacuum, folks. This is part of a clear strategy from Lincoln Riley. One of the best things a leader can do, I truly believe this. We get so obsessed with the media and certainly in the sports with that sort of archetypal head coach that, he's the genius, he's the mastermind, the Bill Walsh, the Bill Belichick guy who just knows everything. But if you actually look at those coaches and look at what they were almost more CEOs, they're almost more managers, delegating responsibility to trusted lieutenants when in terms of the programs, franchises, in the case of Walsh and Belichick, that they were leading. That's what Lincoln Riley figured out at USC. He's like, okay, if I'm going to win here, if I'm going to overcome my own deficiencies and we're trending down fast, Caleb Williams masking some problems, I need to find some guys. I need to promote. I need to hire. I need to elevate. I need to upset the apple cart. And folks, he went out and got it done. And the results on the recruiting trail have spoken for themselves. Does it guarantee wins? Does it guarantee national titles? Of course not. But we have to give credit where credit is due with Lincoln Riley for recognizing that him personally and the status of the USC Trojans program was trending in a bad direction. And if he didn't make a massive change, if he wasn't willing to humble himself and make these massive changes so early in his tenure, again, Lincoln Riley was an established coach, right? He had been to the playoff with Oklahoma. He was willing to upset the apple cart completely with a bunch of moves to put the USC program in a better position. It's what you would want from every coach. Most do it. Most don't do it. Riley did it. Give credit where credit is due here with his leadership, taking on, instead of that offensive mastermind role, transitioning now to the CEO of the USC Trojans program. And with that transition, paired with the recruiting results that come with it, I think the future is very bright in Los Angeles.
Yeah, Nick, and I think one last thing, just exactly what you said, really something stood out to me, really important, and I think that's the key here is Lincoln Riley really does deserve a lot of credit, but that's the thing, he's not taking it, and he's okay with that. I think that's the transition. It was used to be all about Lincoln Riley. I'm the face of the program. I'm the offensive mastermind. I brought in Caleb Williams. I'm doing all of this stuff for everybody. And finally, he turned it around and saying, okay, it doesn't have to be all about me. I can bring in some other lieutenants, like you say, and let them get the glory. Let those guys, not Lincoln Riley is not one of the top 10 recruiters in all of college football. The guys he hired are. Those are now the face of the franchise. Those are the guys you're going to be looking to as the young, hotshot, up and coming guys. So the fact that he's been able to be humble enough to be like, okay, I don't need to be, I know I'm good. I don't have to be the face of this team anymore. I don't have to be, everything doesn't have to be about me. I can take a step back and let these other young guys shine. I think that's really critical. I think how you brought that up is really important. So, yes, give Lincoln Riley his flowers. I think he's done a really great job, but I also think it's really important that he no longer needs those flowers. And I think he doesn't have to have them anymore. He's letting his guys shine. And that is what is going to make this a better football team.